You guys ever have one of those days where everything seems just to go in a way that infuriates you or makes your life harder and could even upset you? It's just you feel like you can't win. Nothing goes right. I'm in the middle of one of those days. And now, normally, I really wouldn't necessarily share that with you guys. Not that I'm trying to hide it. Not that I'm trying to act like I don't have those days. I just don't often find it fundamentally necessary to talk about such things. And at least not on a panel, especially. And I've been on panels where I'm having bad days, to be honest with you. It's not abnormal because life doesn't end. Just because we're in a quarantine now doesn't mean life has ended or changed or that things don't continue to happen. Sometimes we just have bad days, and there's not much you can do about that. And that's what I'm in the middle of. The reason I'm bringing all this up, and by the way, for those who don't know, today we lost MegaCon and SuperCon in Florida. So that completely bummed me out, made me instantly upset after a night where Jax had trouble sleeping. So he had a bad night, which, of course, when your child has a bad night, that means you have a bad night. So I've had very little sleep, and I'm running on fumes here. And the reality of the situation is, despite how upset I am, despite the fact that things are going wrong, I had this show scheduled. And because I had this show scheduled, I had to show up today, and I had to do what I said I was going to do. And that's the same as your pitches, because if there was ever a show where I was going to be exhausted, if there was ever a show where I was going to feel tired and I'd be okay with still performing it, it would be one about pitching, because I just made sure in my life, to be honest with you, that I understood pitching and I understood the power of pitching. And sorry about looking down. I'm just setting the show in motion so more amazing people can join us, because I also threw out an open mic challenge. I want people to come on the show today and talk about their pitches. And that's the point. Your pitch should be so ingrained in you that on your worst day, you can still pitch and you can still do it with a smile. So we're not going to talk about how I feel today. It's not what this panel is about. We're going to talk about the power of pitching. As a side note, just to go along with my day, a couple of my guests are running late, and we're going to see. This might just be a me show, but if there was ever going to be a show that it had to be just a me show, I'm okay with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what a pitch is, because I think that's important. I don't think everyone understands what a pitch is. Hold on. First thing I want to just quickly do is have Jax turn that down. Jackson, can you turn down your music a little bit? Turn it down. Shh. Please. So a pitch, Jaxie, hi. Do you want to say hi? Jax, you want to say hello? All right. So a pitch is generally an idea, a sentence, a way to convey the information of what you're actually selling or have at your table. So in other words, I just have this whole thing in the back of me. And if I had a guest, I would have told someone that on the panel to pick something out. But here we go. Advocator, the poo-poo platter for indie comics. Jax, the Anderson is about teaching what... Hey, Jax, if someone says hey to you. Jax, the Anderson is about teaching morals with dreams and the power that parents can actually instill in their children. Cat Dad and Supermom is teaching morals with farts. It's about conquering bullying. And I'm reading the comments as they're going. Barbara Unleashed is just like 50 Shades of Grey if an adult had written it and knew what they were talking about and actually cared about the fetish community. And notice I'm doing this all while my son is next to me, grabbing me, and I'm doing it while reading comments that are popping up, and I'm being handed assignments by little boys named Jax to get done for him. He always hands me things from these Rochelle things without actual directions, and I'm just supposed to figure it out. But that's life. So I'd even be on the floor of a show right now. Well, not right now, but during the weekend, and I'd still have these instant things where my son just suddenly wanted me to figure out how to do these things where I'm handed a wolf body and I had to figure it out. So you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to create something while talking to people and say, excuse me, I just got to get this for my kid. Do you have any questions? But so I have some other books that are coming out soon. I have this great story about the Yellow Brick Road in Cthulhu versus Oz. And you just keep it going. You keep your conversations going. And it's because you're comfortable. You know your stuff. You know your pitches. That pitch is, why don't they ever talk about why the road is yellow? What if I told you the road was the most powerful thing in Oz? And you have all those things and you keep going. And you do what you got to do, and you create what you create, and you get things like this for your kid while you're talking about pitches. And someone who knows how to throw a pitch, even if he doesn't know how to be on time, is Brian K. Morris. I think, in all honesty, he forgot. He said he wanted to be on this one.
It's been a day, Rob.
Oh, I feel you. I'm having the same day. I started out the whole thing like, this sucks today, but we're going to do this anyway. So like I was saying to them, your pitches are so ingrained into our minds that even on a bad day, we can do them. You can point to a book behind me and I can give you the pitch. The one that I struggled with was Jack's the Anderson, because we did redo the book a little bit. So I actually haven't pitched it. I realized till now I actually haven't pitched it, because I used to pitch it a different way. Right. But I pitched it differently, and I got it through anyway. So how are you doing? Tell them who you are, and we're going to continue to talk about this.
All right. Who am I? Let me get all my sophisticated props here.
I thought you were getting your notes like, oh, who am I?
Who the heck am I? Yeah, there's some days. There's just some days I'm not really sure, but I know who I am. I'm Rob's friend. I'm Brian K. Morris at Rising Tide Publications, publisher, independent hybrid author of comic books and novels, international seller, and host of the Daily, never mind the Furthermore, on YouTube, the Rising Tide page, and my profile page, and on con everywhere. Plus Tuesday nights we do an interview show called Clever Title Pending, where we talk about creativity and the business behind it. And every now and then I come in when Rob needs a rescue. So here I am. Glad to help.
Oh, today is not a rescue day necessarily, although I'm happy you're here.
I was going to say then, see you.
Today was actually a day that, remember, you wanted to be on because it's about pitching. And I don't know anyone in this industry who knows how to pitch as well as you do, because you'll actually read something and be able to convert it into a pitch while you're reading it. That's kind of amazing. Like, I've seen you do that. And I've seen the creators themselves struggle with how to say something. You're reading it for the first time and you're making it sound like a pitch. So I do want to talk about that. How important is it to tonally make the pitch come across the right way?
I think tonally, one thing you need to do when whether you are selling your comic book to a customer or your concept to a publisher, you have to let people feel your passion for it. That is the chief thing. I remember when the first time I approached Rob a couple of years ago with a comic project I was then financing on Kickstarter, and the first thing Rob talked about was the passion that I had for the product. And I think that's the primary thing. Plus, I think brevity is very important. So many people have a limited attention span. They have limited time. And we're so conditioned now. Yeah. And we're so conditioned now to wanting everything now. And so if you can condense your pitch down to, I like to use the elevator pitch philosophy, where it's 2 sentences, 2 breaths, you get it out, and then you leave it up in the open for the person listening to say, hey, I want to hear more, or, oh, that's nice, have a nice day. And brevity is the soul of wit, as they used to say. It also shows whether you have a handle on the concept. Can you make it sound exciting in 2 sentences? If 2 sentences aren't going to do it, half an hour at it sure isn't going to help at all. So I would say those are the main things. And also, think of it as like the blurb on the back of your paperback or your trade novel. And getting this down early will help you sell it, because you're just that far ahead of trying to convey the essence of what makes this such an awesome project. So what would you say to that, Rob?
Oh, I think enunciation is so important. I think, of
Mhm.
course, people don't realize that an elevator pitch is, so we get it out there. The famous saying is you have to be able to say everything by the time the elevator door closes and then reopens a few floors later. So Brian's got it exactly right.
Right.
And by the way, this apparently built a wolf. I finally found the directions. I got it all built for Jax. I actually did a pretty good job considering I didn't know what I was building, so I was kind of proud of myself. But yeah, a pitch is all about, like you said, it's about enunciation. It's about having command of it. It's being able to own it. Like, you know, when I do this thing at all my panels when we're in public, when we're at Comic Cons, where I point to a person, I go, "Give me your pitch," and they don't know what's coming, and it's like, and you see the professionals, you see the people. Except for the ones who are new with the book. Like when you first get a book, you're still playing with it. And there is a trial and error phase. I want you guys to understand that.
That's true.
A lot of us go through almost market research. We pitch our books to our friends, to the first couple people to get a feel for it. One of my first pitches for Barbara Unleashed was, this is a story about a young woman's journey through the New York City fetish underground. Within that time, she learns about her humanity, and she learns that she is not her fetish, but she is a person with a fetish. And it dragged on. And I realized very quickly that was not going to go, because you would have people who, you know, sometimes just, okay, like, you know, they kind of like, I want to think I know what you're talking about. You don't. But when you say, my book's like 50 Shades of Grey, you're taking something that everyone kind of has an understanding for, and you say, but it's written by an adult that knows what they're talking about. You give them comparisons, and in their mind, they've come to a quick conclusion. If you've done your job completely right, 100%, they're buying the book. They don't ask anything more. They say, here's my money. Please give me a book, sir. Another good level is that when they ask you a question, or even better, like Brian said, and I stress this, they say, no, thank you. And they're on their way. One of my first pitches, and Brian knows this, so you can't see it because I'm sitting there, but on the bottom of, let me see if I move out of the way if it shows it. On the bottom of that sign over there, it says, fetish, monsters, and more. That's a big statement, right? But it's what my table is. When we look over there, we have kids' books. We have all ages books, because Jax is still considered a kid's book. We have Barbara Unleashed. We have The Advocator. I'm going to have other brands hitting my table in the next year. Plus, Monsters isn't even up there. So I have a Monsters book. So you have, and then I say, yeah, hi, my name's Rob Anderson. I create books about fetish, monsters, and more. And they open the door for me. And I even watch them. Like I'll say fetish, and I'll take off my glasses because I know I'm getting a glare. I'll say fetish, monsters, and more, and I'm looking for this, some sort of micro reaction to it. If they go like this for fetish, I know don't push that. If I say more and they're like that, I know they're curious. And that comes down to studying a person's, and I really suggest this, look up micro expressions, study them, get to understand them, and you'll know how to be so much better of a pitcher. But that is what it's all about. And James Eric Hudson says, what's up, fellas? What's going on, James? Eric Hudson, Dreaded Dinosaur Man creator. He's pretty good at doing some pitches for his Dreaded Dinosaur Man. And again, the doors are open. Actually, I should put out a public one, so people can come in and give us their pitch, and we'll tell you what we think of your pitch. So now let me ask you a question. Is it different to pitch a novel than a comic book? Because that's an interesting question.
That's a very good question, actually, Rob. And I would say, in essence, no. No. Because you still have this, maybe different customers, but they're still the same human beings, just with a different interest and with the same limited attention span, or you've got to do something to keep them at your table or in front of you. And if you have a good, fast, exciting pitch, they stay there because maybe they want to, they're not turned on by this, but they want to hear more about what else you have. And there are different ways to pre-qualify a person, but that's a sales show. And but as far as the pitch, not really. In fact, a lot of what I do is kind of comic book in nature, like Volcana here. A vlogger discovers the armor of Vulcan's fallen champion, and hopefully she can learn to use it before she dies again. All right. Or Skyman, based on the old Columbia Comics character. 1939, a Nazi in steam-driven armor has kidnapped the great scientist of North America, but when he kidnaps Alan Turner's uncle, Alan turns into the amazing Skyman, two-fisted science detective. See?
Now, let me ask you a question with that, though. Wouldn't you say the pitch is almost more paramount because you don't have then illustrations to lie back on?
Oh yeah, exactly. But like with comics books, this is the first part that anyone sees. Love you, Sarah. Glad you're here. This is the first part anybody sees. And what this has got to do, thank you very much. Expenses are cool. You want them to pick up the book. You want them to look at that spine, look at that, beautiful cover copy on the back. But this is the gateway, just like a comic cover attracts people. How many comic books has anyone picked up where they look at the cover and go, hey, that's for me, right? And like in your own campaign, Rob, for Cat Dad and Supermom, you're having various covers, and it's not like you are, I don't think you're going to plan to we've got a 1 to 4,000, ratio on this one cover, but you told me you're looking to get people, if one version doesn't attract them, then maybe another cover speaks to the customer. And I think that's very important. I think that was very wise of you, which, by the way, everyone go to Cat Dad and Supermom right now, watch that video, ignore me, and pledge towards Rob's campaign. He needs, I think, 19 more people, even if you do $1. So please, if you believe in what this man does, this man, point in the opposite direction, Brian.
I do that too. I'm dyslexic, and I'll be like, point the other. No, what's the other? Wait, do that. And
yeah,
I'm tied up in my hands, and I'm still not doing right. It's
I think you'd have an advantage over me then.
Now, one of the cool things I do with my covers, and I'm actually going to bring Josh in because Josh did one of the.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Good seeing, man.
Hey, one of the great things about the alternate covers, too, at least for me, is I told all the artists, I'm like, hey, look, not only do you guys get 10 copies, that's how I roll, 10 copies right out the door, but you're allowed to get any other. Just ask me. I'll sell them to you at cost and shipping. Mm-hmm. And now this also offers Josh an opportunity to have a bigger base. He could actually sell comics to kids or to teenagers who might find a farting elephant funny. It's great. But it also expands my reach when we're not at a show together. And we will run into each other at a show, so I won't even have to charge him shipping a lot of time. He'll just be like, hey, Rob, I need a couple extra copies. Do you have it? And I'll be like, no, but I can print it off. I'll print some off anyway. I need them. Boom, boom, boom. You can get that kind of system working with another artist. It just helps your pitches. Because now I can say, when I'm at a show, hey, check out this book. Josh Lyman did it with me. He's at the show today. You should go get him to sign it. Believe it or not, that's a pitch. And you didn't even know it was coming. Because now when Josh gets to that person with the book in their hand, he knows, okay, they're a fan of my art. What can I do to translate that into sales now? You guys don't understand how much science goes behind what we're doing. A lot of times the best pitches are the ones that you never knew you were being pitched. So, Josh, please introduce yourself. Of course, the great cover, and I'll show it to everyone who doesn't know what we're talking about while you're talking.
Oh, no worries. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Josh C. Lyman. I've been in comic books and in general promotions through Comic Cons and print media and whatnot for probably going on about 15 plus years, but I've been doing this full time for about 10 years. And yes, my most recent cover is with Cat Mom and I've been doing that a lot lately. Super Mom and Cat Dad.
Varian started it on this morning's show. Everyone's doing it now. I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's because of him. That's why it's the most recent. But it's definitely one of those things where people's attention spans. You got to try and get their attention and do it in the best possible way and find a way so it's not super repetitive and to the point that you just get tongue tied and just get tired of yourself. And finding the way to present it and make it interesting to everyone. And Brian touched on it great. The elevator pitch, the movie pitch. Give me the 2 sentences. Mm-hmm. Is it this meets this? These are the different things. Sometimes it's great to read all about the back lore of everything that's going on, but most of the time I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, but I come from a gaming background, like Dungeons and Dragons and Champions and all that. I have sat through the dreaded, let me tell you about my character session. I will not let any other human being suffer like that. No. And Sarah has a comment for us.
Yeah, and she says, if you want to read it, go ahead. She's more of a fan of your show than mine.
I don't want to take over the show, but I'm not above it. Anyway, hi, folks. Sarah says, that makes me glad someone is doing several covers for the book I'm writing. Who knew? Thank you. No, Sarah, thank you. And Sarah also says, it's all the inner workings that got me back into comics and writing my first book. It's you guys who have gotten me passionate about it. Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
And that's actually an interesting question. And we're going to be joined by the guy who's actually causing all the problems with the name today, Varian Grant, who kept referring to my book as Super Cat and Something Dad. That was his pitch today on his show for my book. No, he's done a great job with
It's all your fault.
He's done a great job with Indie Vault helping me out on this last stretch. One of the best pitch people I know, yet he doesn't even pitch you. And that's kind of cool, though, Varian. He knows how to talk about his product without making you feel like he's actually pitching it to you. And instead, he's doing you a favor and explaining it, especially with Indie Vault. Welcome the one, the only, the kid, Varian Grant.
Thank you. What a great intro. I can't do better. But I can't do better than that. But yeah, I'm Varian Grant. Co-publisher of Last Call Comics, founder of Indie Vault, all around good egg and horrible person at the same time, which is quite a feat to accomplish.
And I am thankful that you're here because, of course, today is an important one. How important is word use? Like, we were just talking about that with the association model. This is like this, but with this. And there was a time when in indie comics, people said the gatekeepers were like, you can't do that. You can't make associations like that. Yours has to be completely original. And I remember being like, why? I talk about movies that are major Hollywood movies, and I go, no, it's kind of like this and that. And they're major movies. Why would I limit myself from acknowledging, hey, there is something similar? You want to create something all brand new and all completely new. God bless you. You're going to have a long time if you manage it trying to explain it. And then there's going to be one geek kid who's going to walk up to your table and it's going to be like, that's kind of like Wonder Woman if you made her from the South and you just gave her a broomstick instead of a sword. And you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, that happens. I mean, as an artist, how many people have walked past your table and said, oh, that looks like this character, or that looks just like this character. And it's like, it doesn't, but some people it does. So, I mean, why not make those associations? I could see if the associations are false. I know one person who does that religiously. They make false allegations about their book, like it's these two things. And I've read those books, and it is none of that at all. But he took two known concepts. Yeah, he's scanning. Okay, he took two known concepts and said, "Hey, these are like these two. People from this era know this, and people from this era know that." And I would say what it is, but I'll give it away. So, but yeah, he said those things, and it's not true. This comic is nothing like those two things at all. He could find better. He could find better parallels.
Do you think that they switch with the climate? Like, I've seen a couple people like that. Like, one week their book is a sci-fi mystery, horror adventure, and it's just like, let's say, Hunger Games. And then the next week when something new comes out, it's suddenly just like the new popular thing. Like, it's just like Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
What? Like, how did it be both? Because I've seen creators do that. I know Brian does that with some of this stuff. He throws things at the wall to see what sticks.
Oh, yeah. It's like Frankenstein, but with modern words.
I like that with modern words. Like, believe it or not, it sounds like a bad pitch, but it instantly makes me stop and go, wait, that actually, because I can't stand reading Frankenstein. I didn't like the original one because it had that weird English.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
Well, I love the story.
Cool kids like it, Rob, apparently.
I grew up in Queens. What do you expect from me, Josh?
Oh,
we don't speak English. We speak New York.
I mean, don't forget the Frankenstein monster was a vegetarian.
Yeah, see, that's definitely out in New York. That's definitely not happening. I had a question. I'm sorry, this is kind of derailing the thing, but has there ever been to Brian and Josh? You guys like the original Frankenstein book. Has there been what adaptation of the source material has been the closest, in your opinions?
Of Mice and Men.
Well, Frankenstein.
I like the Superman monster.
There you go. Well, being elderly here and having read too many comic books, Classics Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I got through grade schools. Classics Illustrated. The closest in mainstream comics, though, I think, was Marvel Comics had a comic called The Monster of Frankenstein that lasted for about a dozen issues or so. And the first half dozen were by Gary Friedrich, who created Ghost Rider, and Mike Plug, who worked on Werewolf by Night. Yeah. And those were about the closest that I ever saw to the original book. And I love that book because it was the very first grown-up book that my parents let me read, which probably explains how I turned out to be this adult. So
any movies that were closest?
Oh, recent.
Not really recent. Just any movie that I can.
Oh, any movie.
Any Frankenstein movie, basically.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one because all the ones I've seen have differed from the original in some significant way. That to me kind of while it's derivative of the original, it just doesn't quite hit all the points. For me at least, but there's probably somebody out there who can tell me a close version of it. Probably the closest one, heaven help me for saying it, probably Young Frankenstein. I mean, as far as the dramatic points and all the things going on, if you turn out the sound and forget the monster lighting his finger on fire, it is fairly close to the original novel.
Okay. That's kind of important to your thing, Rob. When you're pitching books, and you have to try to figure out what movie you're going to tie it into, or what the person you're pitching to has heard of, what's familiar. So is in this case, X-Men. Okay, everyone's heard of X-Men. You're at a Comic-Con, you should have heard of X-Men. So my comic is like X-Men meets this. I got mine. I got the one for Catharsis from a guy who had read the book a year prior. And he came to me and says, "Man, I like this book. It's like Breaking Bad meets The Punisher. I love this sick shit." So it ended up on my cover of my book because that was like, it was cool that he made that connection. I never did. But at the time I was consuming a lot of Breaking Bad. So
I will say this: the worst Frankenstein thing, just to touch on that, Frank Castle is Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Frankenstein.
The Punishstein was pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
that was
in that Plan 9 kind of way.
Yeah. Frankencastle. It was
something.
Yeah.
Something.
So it's funny as far as like pitches and stuff. Like I mentioned a couple of times, I really enjoy the Amalgam comics.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for the Frankenstein monster. The reason why is because it's one of those things where it's like, it's such a great idea, but it has such terrible writing. And it's just one of those things where it's like, just how you chose to pitch it made that project continue. And I'm like, no, seriously. We combined Spider-Man and Superboy and made Spider-Boy. It's Spider-Man with a leather jacket and a gun. And like, why would you not be interested in it? It's Batman with Wolverine claws. It's the Dark Claw, and we mix the Sabretooth with the Joker. Like these are one of those, even that right there. I don't care what the plot of the book is. I just want to see the artwork of that. Who mashed up those characters together? Mm-hmm. What team up happened? Things like that. And that's pretty much all I collect comic book wise are stuff where they did like the return of Bruce Wayne, and it's 7 issues or 8 issues of Bruce traveling through time, and no matter where he is, he doesn't know who he is. He's still Batman.
Yeah.
But those covers they did
rough. That was rough.
But
that was rough.
Covers were amazing.
The writing was good. I give Josh credit. It was good, but it was just rough transitions to try to sell it. Like the story was well written, but you're like, this wouldn't work.
Yeah.
This
is just one of those things.
to attest to the popularity of Dark Claw. What I think it was one of the few characters to get a toy from the Amalgam line. And not just that, but when people think of Amalgam comics, they think of that character. Definitely one of my favorites. And also favorites, just while we're talking about Frankenstein like characters, DC did a book where the freaking Waynes found the that's pretty cool, Josh. That's cool. The Waynes found the Superman's ship and raised him.
Right.
And I love that book. He was I still have it. It's over there in my collection. I love that book, and it's funny because at first, every year I would read it and I discovered something new in it. Like the first time I got the book, I wasn't smart enough to understand it. You know, next year I was like, oh, I get it. And now, so who knows what I find now that I'm older? I might find a whole new story there that I didn't think about. But really cool book. Show's going downhill. Eric's joined.
For the record, I'd like to be known as Backer 82 of Cat Dad and Supermom.
Backer 82, man. Backer 82.
And also the colorist for the prestigious Stone cover that might launch. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you all something, and I'm gonna pitch something brand new. I've never told anyone except for Luke Stone, but I think it's a great idea. What if we, as independent creators, came up with something where we had fun? You know how Marvel has what ifs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
What if we made
Why not?
Alter Realms, and in Alter Realms we get to kind of take our characters and play with them and do something different that doesn't affect like Elseworlds. It doesn't affect anything. We just put them in a different scenario, and we want to try to have fun with them for an issue or two. I started thinking about that. I'm like, how cool would that be to really go back to, especially older characters, and just take them out. You've established it, and instead of worrying about an origin, you just put them in a new story in a new place. Like, what if your Santa Stein was suddenly James Bond?
Right.
So just imagine that, like the #1 spy, but he takes off his mask and he's still the monster. And he's been alive the whole time. What if Dreaded Dinosaur Man was actually kept in a zoo in America because somehow he wound up in America during our time period? How would they react to him? Varian, what if someone from your Last Call comics, because as we established, you don't talk about your comics enough, so we know very little about what you create, was in someone else's backyard? And what if we teamed up and played with each other's characters in a one-issue circumstance where nothing affected it? That would give Josh the ability to be like, hey, I always liked your character, Variant. I want to create something new. What if we play with the two characters? And now you can do it because being an Alter Realm, it does not affect your continuum.
I would absolutely love to do like an indie comics team up type thing. That would be sweet.
It'd be fun.
I was like, it reminds me of the ones they did in the early days with Savage Dragon and the Max and Spawn and stuff like that. It's definitely feasible as an idea. Unfortunately, we live in the world where we want to have fun and we do stuff like that. I did something back in the day called the DU Universe, and we did a ramble raffle where basically people did sequential pages of their characters fighting each other and stuff like that. And it worked out for a time. But then suddenly people were like, oh, well, I want to get paid to draw the character that's randomly like this, or I want to turn a profit. And it's one of those, I'm always on board to talk about those things, but it's like figuring out our own lores and what our own things are. Like, hey, it's too boxy.
I kickstarted like the Advocator, so you all got issues. I'm a big fan of proponent. When I do a project, if we're working together, I think we should all just get books. I think that should be the payment. And then you go out and you sell books and you make money.
I think it would be good if we all had fun.
Yeah.
That would definitely be something.
Yeah, I'd be totally down for that.
All right. So that's my brand new pitch. You guys got to see it live on air. And if anyone tries to take it, it's too late. I already published it on Kickstarter, so it's going to be there forever. So I really like to think about Kickstarter today. It doesn't go away. It doesn't alter itself. Once you fund, it stays that way in concrete. I was like, wait, copyright loophole. I'm going to start hiding things inside of my Kickstarters as timestamps and be like, oh, yeah, Your Honor, go check my Kickstarter. Thank you. I win. All right, Dreaded Dinosaur Man, tell them who you are. You came in last.
My name is Eric Hodson. I am the Dreaded Dinosaur Man. I am the creator of the Dreaded Dinosaur Man on Webtoon, feverishly working on some new stories and strips and finishing out a script for a book I hope to launch in the fall on Indiegogo. And currently we're wrapping up the Roddy Piper comic book. Got a few pages left of that. And all around decent guy and trying to make it in this crazy, crazy art world.
All right, guys. So now that you're all here and we finally got everyone together, let's start doing pitches.
Let's bring the hot seat.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone's going to go around and do a pitch. It's going to be random. It's going to be like for those who watch WWA, this is the Elimination Chamber. We're just going to randomly call people up, and where it stops, that person has to suddenly do a pitch. And we're going to start off with...
All right. The Dreaded Dinosaur Man brings 80s culture to clash with modern sci-fi storytelling. If you are a fan of old classic cartoons, grew up in the 80s, if you just love good sci-fi with family-friendly characters and good storytelling, check out Dreaded Dinosaur Man for free on Webtoon.
Oh crap! I knew it was gonna be me. I knew it. Okay, well, at least share my screen. At the very least. All right, so there's my comic, The Begotten. It is very seriously probably X-Men, The Da Vinci Code, and Buffy all tied into one. It is a story about a human demon half-breed and his group of friends who go around and save the world from the evil diabolical devil. There we go. That's a weak pitch, and he's not there, so I'll keep pitching. Sweet. And there's other stuff too. Listen. I'm really gonna piss some Catholics off in my book. Go ahead.
My book pisses off Catholics. No, one thing I am working on later this year in conjunction with Eric Hawkins, who recently produced the Zombiful World of Oz, will be a revival of Jerry Siegel's Nature Boy. It was always written a little tongue-in-cheek. We are going to take that same classic approach to this one, but with solid art and stories that kind of make you feel better at the end than when you started. End of pitch.
Came back to Eric.
Pitch another one.
I know I know him and Josh look alike, but
Piper.
Yeah.
Piper.
Oh, Piper. There we go.
That's racist.
Do you like wrestling? Do you like awesome action? Well, check out Roddy Piper, the Kilted Avenger. What if Roddy Piper was a vigilante superhero? What would that be like? Check it out. 52 pages of full color, awesome action. It'll bring you back to your childhood and hit you over the head with a coconut.
Oh, it's me. Oh boy, I'm so excited. So I've been away from indie comics for quite some time, and I figured if I'm going to come back, I wanted to come back with a bang. And pun intended, series I'm working on is called Six Shot Revolver. I want it to be an ongoing graphic novel series in which it allows me to tell at least 6 stories. And as I tend to change my style of artwork from time to time, I want to be able to tell the stories as I so see fit with that. The first couple of tales are various. A modern apocalyptic storyline of sexy pinup chick fighting monstrous beasts as a retelling of Red Riding Hood, or the evolution of the term of a monster, or just balancing with a little bit of homage with public domain, get a samurai retelling of the Tin Man's story, from the beginning where he loses his arms because of the person he loves to why he's going after the wizard and the Wicked Witch. I'll give you the other 3 later.
Oh, now I've got to multitask. Okay, one thing we are working on is a revival of Skyman, licensed from Ron Franz. This one is going to be done in classic storytelling style, with all the things that made the original Skyman cool. But in the first issue, we're going to be working off of a script by Joe Gill, who wrote about 99,000% of everything Charlton Comics ever put out, including and also some projects for other publishers like Dell and DC. He was the man who helped create Johnny Double, if you remember him. So we're going to be doing that. Two-Fisted Science Detective Skyman. Next, Fake Freeze Frame.
Me? No. All right.
Couldn't be. Then who?
As he steals all our ideas.
What if I told you that the classic Universal monsters aren't monsters? They're just human beings with genetic disorders. And the real monsters are the Hollywood executives who took advantage of their poor genetic disorders to make movies about them that slandered them. Well, find out what happens when they have to prove that they're not real-life monsters, as they go on a detective's journey to discover who the real monsters really are.
Want to see the comic that almost got me kicked out of comics altogether? That's right, Catharsis. I was angry. I wrote it. I drew it in 3 months. It's the story of Connor James, the guy there in the green shirt, and this young lady here and that's sitting in the wheelchair. She's actually his therapist, and she decides that the best assassins are her mental health patients. So she uses them as her own private hit squad. It's a dark comedy, and that's where the gentleman at the Motor City Comic Con told me it's like Breaking Bad meets The Punisher. I love this sick shit, and I put it on my comic after that. Get it now.
Is it me? I literally just switched over. Sorry. I literally just switched over to respond to a client. I apologize. All right. Well, let's give you the fun one. Eventually, I'll get this off the ground, but this is a working title. I call it Doom Spoon. It's Rescue Rangers meets Midsummer's Night's Dream. So you get a little bit of that borrower's action where things, the characters are smaller. So they're able to use things like spoons as staffs and things like that. But you get to play with the elven mythology and the concept of brownies and gremlins and kabukis, and just in general get to explore the entire world of mythology in a world where people have stopped believing in these creatures and how they try to survive. That's the fancy one.
For now, we'll just take a quick pause on that. We'll go back to some little more pitching. One of the things I do want to ask you guys about is when you're making your pitches, how do you get to that point where it works? Are you using a sounding test and deliver system where you're going to cons and seeing who slows down? Are you bouncing it off a loved one, or are you just sitting there until it sounds right by you? We'll go in order this time. Brian K. Morris, start us off.
Well, first of all, my best sounding board is my wife, Cookie, who, when she edited one of my books, she said, "Isn't chapter 33 supposed to make sense?" So apparently, she's not terribly worried about my feelings. She will concentrate on the work, but she's also an incredible editor. So she'll be usually the first person I run these ideas by. In fact, I was running something by her this morning for a comic series I want to pitch to another publisher. And in addition, I have had times where I'm talking to somebody at a show and they say, "I'd love to have you work for us. What do you have that I can possibly sell to my bosses?" And of course, I have nothing because I have my own publishing company and don't need anyone to tell me what I'm publishing. But I'll think, I'll help this person, and so I'll say, what are you looking for? And it might be like a post-apocalyptic scenario where everyone looks like little chibi characters. Now, okay, fine, and I'll make something up on the spot. And this helps keep you sharp. So, but I don't do that as often as I run things by my wife, and occasionally I'll run something by one of my creative friends who also are not terribly concerned about my feelings, which is healthy.
Josh, what do you think?
I mean, I think that's a great way to go with it. I mean, I'm frankly out of practice because I took so long a break, and I've, written out everything and just put everything off to the side going, hey, I'll deal with bills first. And then once I've built up a fan base and an audience, I can go and I can plug these, and I'll have a group of people that already support me that are like, hey, here we go. As far as the artwork and stuff are concerned. So, when I was pitching and things like that, it was like, here's my sketch work, here's the plot. What do you think? I have a focus and background in 3D modeling and animation with, character development. So for me, I kind of approach almost every comic or story that I'm doing from that concept and building phase, where it's like, okay, here's your subplot, here's your thumbnails of all your covers that you're going to do, here's every monster that you want them to interact with during the first 6 creatures. Okay, rework all of this, now put together all of your character bibles, and then go and get ready for your pitch. And I think I kind of approach my real life with that situation as well, where I try to gather as much knowledge as I can before I start distributing before I start pitching. So it's fun to be able to get back and do this. I was getting ready to review other people. I'll take my licks. Let's do it.
Perry in Europe.
Well, I mean, I gotta kind of echo what Brian said. I listen to, like, I see what people are responding to when I'm pitching. I kind of listen to people next to me too, because I want to see if their pitch is close to mine, if I need to adjust it. I'm guessing you're talking about at a con setting where I'm able to talk to the person, so I try to adjust. I don't. If the guy next to me is saying, "Hey, my book is you know the X-Men based," I'm like, "Oh, well, he's already got the X-Men thing cornered, so I got to figure out now what I can stick in the place of X-Men." That being said, I do. Since I have booth girls, I find that every story sounds better coming from a pretty girl, and so I make sure that the girls read the book, and they all read it, and they all kind of give me their opinions on it. I find out, it's kind of like a book report. I find out what they thought about it, and they'll tell me, and then I'll ask them to pitch it to me, and each of them pitch it to me a completely different way. So it's really unique hearing somebody else's idea of your work, and I'll tell them, you know what, that works, go ahead, and they'll go out there and they'll do their best to pitch it. They don't so much like one of other books that we carry, because that can get kind of like, I got like 6 other books that I published that aren't mine, and I know them all, but if I'm not at the table, oops. But I think for me that pitch needs to be ever evolving. It needs to be modular. I want to be able to take things out and add things as I can, because again, the area, the community, the people around me may elicit a change that I need to make very quickly on the fly to get that sale.
James?
I usually fly by the seat of my pants on these things. I try to avoid kind of strange, well, not strange, but the cliche comparison of saying it's just like this, because not everybody's going to be a fan of whatever that is, and try to have it stand on its own merits as much as possible. For Dinosaur Man, though, I do have like genre appealability. Like anybody who's my age, who grew up in the 80s watching the best cartoons ever made and ever will be made, you've got there's a hook there. And also, I do a lot. I drive a lot of my storytelling from kind of like a 50s sci-fi. So there's also that pull as well for older people, and then for young kids, just seeing a muscle-bound dude with a dinosaur head kind of brings them in too. On that, as far as pitching him in general, pitching my own work, it just depends. I kind of look at the people coming by. If they're in anime garb, I'm not going to show them some wrestling prints. But if they're in a Bullet Club shirt, I know that wrestling is a solid bet to pitch them, and then kind of go from there. You try to catch whether or not somebody's got a Doctor Who bag. Maybe if you're going to show them some artwork, you show them the Doctor Who artwork, or little things like that.
Those are all great points, which brings, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but I want to talk about it. Varian especially hit it. Do you guys alternate your pitches in your mind to have a different way to pitch? Not only depending on necessarily your neighbor, but the show itself. Like, I have tempered down barber pitches, which of course is where I got around to being able to say the 50 Shades of Grey. It goes over all kids' heads. No kid should know what I'm talking about. It's like that little joke, So do you guys have that where you have different pitches just in case? Or even just to kind of lean into someone you might think is a fan, as Eric was pointing out. Hey, you have a Bullet Club shirt, so I know to pitch you a little different. And this is the pitch I have when I know you're a fan the minute you step up to the plate. We'll go in reverse order this time, and we'll go with Dreaded Dinosaur Man first, and we'll go the opposite way around. So, Dreaded Dinosaur Man, do you have different pitches for different folks?
Yes.
Care to share?
Varian, you're next.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's like, no.
You really got to, because you one of the things you have to do if you're going to be in this business, you've got to learn who your audience is, and that's an ongoing thing. Like, I've, over the course of my years as being an artist at these shows, I have 2 distinct audiences. I have the wrestling audience and I have the anime audience, and those two generally do mingle. I did anime show here in Detroit where I sold quite a few wrestling pieces. But those are just the type of things you end up learning as you go, as you get to know what your audience base is. I've got a lot of people who started out as fans who've become some of my best friends, and I can't wait to see them again, getting out and getting to these shows. And it's just, you connect with them on a specific level, and that's how you learn. I mean, let's face it, we're in the business of relationships primarily, and secondary is the thing that we're selling, because people love that connection with somebody. They want that connection with the artist, with the writer, with the creator, whatever you're doing. And that's the first and foremost thing, is you want to create that, establish that relationship, and getting to know them, whether they like this, that, or the other thing. That's part of it.
You're up, Varin.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned about how you identify what person's into. I'm a big Wolverine fan. Everyone knows that, to the point where my character there in the middle, Raquel, there is basically he's got the same amount of rage as Wolverine. In fact, some of the poses he has in the comic are very Wolverine-esque if Wolverine had a sword. So the thing is, I'll talk to somebody if I see my Wolverine shirt. Hey, man, I see you like Wolverine. He's a cool character. He's my favorite character. And I'll talk to them about that. I'll pitch the book to them as a fellow Wolverine fan. Like before Wolverine was Disneyfied, starting back in the Fox cartoon, by the way, where he first started getting declawed. But that was for kids, so they couldn't make him do everything that he's supposed to do. Anyway, yeah, so I'll pitch him on that. I'll pitch my pitch is, it's ever changing. I listen to what the booth girls are saying too, because I've had booth girls come up with little like gems of wisdom, and I'm still in that. I like what she said. I'm taking it to mine now, and they're like research and development. If I can only figure out how to transition to a girl for a short amount of time and pitch my book, that'd be great. But yeah, you got to change it. I think to go out there with one static pitch is folly. You're gonna have a problem later on, and I'll leave it at that because it sounds smart. Leaving it that way.
I mean, pure and simple, these guys have pretty much covered it. You can typically gauge from stuff that you've also mentioned, Rob, about like, hey, what people's attention spans are. If they're not your fans already, you kind of just can figure it out, through multiple practice. I have a guy who his pitch has haunted me to this day because we sat next to each other. But even now, it's like chain smoking vampire, an alcoholic Aborigine werewolf, and a short tempered dwarf. And it's like it was just like a modern group of I don't know, buttercream gang or something. But it's one of those things where it because he knew what to say, every once in a while he would just revert back to that phrase, and occasionally you got to mix it up and find out how to say it differently. And occasionally it might just be like what Varian was saying, just pass it off to somebody else and go, hey, what do you think? And be like, hey, it reminds me it's this meets this. And be like, you know what? I'm going to try that. You mind if I try that? I don't know. For the longest time, I've been listening to other people's pitches for working privately for the longest time now. It's unusual to be on the other end again. It's like, wait, what?
Go ahead, BKM.
Well, Josh mentioned, like pitches, that might have been a little uncomfortable. I remember one of the absolute worst pitch I ever got was somebody who started to tell me about his book on page 1 and didn't stop till he told me how it ends. And then expected me to buy the comic book. And I'm like, don't need to now. I feel like I've seen the movie. But yeah, I sometimes change up my pitches just a little because one, maybe I don't have my pitch 100% yet, and I want it to flow. And so I figure if I practice on my potential customers, I lose nothing, because maybe their acceptance is where I've realized, okay, I've dialed it in. This is the one that works. But also, since a lot of what I do, some of my material is from like years past. Some of it I keep on the table because it continues to sell. And so I changed it up, if only so I don't sound like I'm reading a script. It is so easy to just belt the stuff out like the old Micro Machines guy, where it's just like, blah, 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 just like a huge dump of syllables. But this way I still keep the pitch, with just little tweaks. I make it more effective, hopefully, but I also make it non-boring to myself, because how many times might I have to give that same pitch in a day, in 2 days a week, and whatever? So, Rob?
And sometimes that's very true. I mean, we make other pitches just to entertain ourselves, I think, because we get so tired of saying it. It's like, do you like to be spanked and tied up? Well, and you'll love Barbara Unleashed. But then, sometimes you can't pitch that when their little daughter's there or their son's there, so you need a different pitch. So you try to be clever. Sometimes you get too clever for your own good. Like I've played with my friends on ways to differentiate your stories using modern things. So I was like, think about Suicide Squad, but no one dies. But there's a lot of rope and there's a lot of chains and there are a lot of weight. Now, one of the best things that we could do is bring in someone who is brand new. As a matter of fact, let's bring in the comic noob to take over asking some questions, because
she's a guy.
So because she's so in a different way. Hey, you over there, crazy, shush. It's like being at a con. Hecklers are in the background. So we're going to let Meredith ask some questions. She asked a really great question, actually, in our stream party. But stream parties don't work well with StreamYard. I don't know why that works that way, but okay, whatever. So the stream party or the watch party, as Facebook calls it, isn't doing what it's supposed to do. So now we're going to let Meredith ask some questions. But before you do that, please introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Meredith Lochran, and I am the Comic Noob. This is a new show. We're actually going to launch this tomorrow with Rob's help. We're going to talk about what the show is and take it from there. And then it's going to move to an evening time slot, Fridays at 9 p.m. Hopefully, I am not overlapping anybody else, because that is not the intention. It is actually to teach and learn and go through the process of going from like zero knowledge, but the desire to create a comic book and talking to people through interviews and things like that. But I also do Lady Geek Live on Sundays at 5. And, we have a whole bunch of podcasts through Geek Insider. We're powered through NSC Live. We are now working with the Comic Book Advocating Network. So I've got my fingers in a lot of pies here. And I'm a terrible pitcher, so I wanted to really kind of be in the background, but I have questions. I have questions for you guys.
Questions.
Yeah. So the question that I have is, if you're at a convention, a bricks and mortar convention, I would think that your table display is just as important as your pitch, right? And so what I wrote in the stream is, for example, if you had a mature book behind a brown paper cover, but you had other selections on your table, isn't that kind of a pitch for you? Wouldn't that be a conversation starter for anybody who cares to ask?
I see, for me, just because she said brown paper bag, and I'm the only one in the room who could come close to having that story, let's be honest.
Wait.
I don't know about that.
Well, the fact that women ask you to wear a brown paper bag over your head, we shouldn't.
That's my dating life, not my pitching.
Oh, fair.
Totally different realm. Different realm.
I'm sorry.
No,
We'll continue, please.
What I do is I put up a giant sign that says free hugs and spanks. And then that instantly, if a kid reads that, what's a kid going to do? I don't understand. Why would he want to give hugs and spanks? They're left confused, but not harmed by it. They go on about their day, but the right adult's like, yo, what is that about? Tell me more. So your table is speaking to you. The fact that I have so many comics on my table, I no longer really have to tell anyone I'm a comic book creator. If I have to tell them I'm a comic book creator at that point, there's nothing I'm going to explain to them that's going to make sense to them, because they're not from this planet. So you want to have things like that, like big signs that draw attention, because your table should be the difference between your table and your pitches. Your pitches should be informative. Your table should be inviting questions. Your table, that's why you should put price tags on it. I don't know if you can see it, but some of my books actually have price tags on it. Notice the bag stuff. So that's a bag. Why is it bagged? You'd naturally go, what's in the bag here? Why, thank you for asking. That is actually our collector's pack. This is what you get in it. And at the very end, you say the price. Because either they're going to decide they want it or they're not. Never start with your price, kids. Price stops a mind from thinking, and it starts going into equating value. Do your pitch first. Tell the price at the end. They're going to decide if that price immediately is worth it. So that's my take on it. Your table should be speaking for you and getting them to ask questions, while your pitch should be informing them and selling them. Your pitch should literally be selling them. They should ask for more if they need to, but it should be a sale versus an opening conversation, if that makes sense. Brian?
Yeah, I just want to bring in something from back in the day when I used to work in comic shops. This was back in the day when a lot of companies were first getting into the so-called adult comic books. And we found that, you talk about the brown paper bag approach, Meredith. We found that in our stores, the ones that had any part of the cover obscured did not do well. As opposed to the ones that, maybe had a provocative scene, for instance, and then like, the usual for adults only, whatever warning they would have, for mature audiences, what have you. So I don't know that the brown paper bag approach would work. I would rather provide a cover that gave a hint as to the delights inside while not showing you explicitly what is going on there. So that goes back again to what we were talking about before you showed up, Meredith, about the cover being the gateway to perhaps making that sale and intriguing the customer enough to pick it up and look at it. Unless they're under 18, in which case I will wrestle that comic from their hands. And have.
Well, because I know that, Varian, you do a lot of stuff. I know that Rob has a whole selection of, age appropriate type of material and things like that. So when you're pitching, obviously you need to know who your audience is. And sometimes you don't know. I mean, again, we always say don't judge a book by its cover. So when you're trying to pitch, I mean, do you pitch everything? Is it just like...
You have to target your pitch. If you like I was saying earlier, if I notice somebody is wearing specific clothing and I have an art print associated with that, that's what I'm going to lead with. People love to tell you. People love to talk about themselves. So you don't really need to be the pitch man, the car salesman. You don't need to go there. If you can just get somebody to talk about themselves with you, they will walk away thinking they had a great conversation with you. And the way you connect is seeing what they're interested in. I mean, even if you can kind of maybe what they're obviously interested in isn't your thing, but you can play that up a little bit. You can ask questions about it and maybe I don't know enough about this thing. Let me ask you some questions like, why do you like Supernatural so much? You're like decked out in everything Supernatural. And they'll sit there for 20 minutes telling you how great that show is. That's the way fandom works. So if you can engage on that level, you have to. You really need to. Again, pitching is about creating relationships first.
Yeah, speaking of pitching, that's why I've changed my theme to. I've changed one of my pitches to that. My comic is like Supernatural meets Da Vinci Code, and that seems to work. That really seems to work. But you said when you were talking about Rob was talking about his table setup. We try to convey fun at our table. Like, hey, come over here and check out our comics. Let the table kind of draw the person in. The problem is all my comics touch on very different themes. So there's not just one. So ask the person, what are you into? And they'll tell me. Generally, they'll tell me. The only thing that can derail that if I ask them if they read comics and they tell me no. Then I'm like, the door is that way.
Yeah. Now, Varian, have you changed up your display recently? Because my biggest criticism of your display is comics seem to be the last thing that I notice.
Yeah. The comics are usually, depending on the table setup I have. If I have like a 2-table setup, I try to push the comics I try to aim them toward the people passing by on the corner. Because I figured there's an aisle there, they're passing by, they're going to look over and they're going to see them. Recently, I thought about buying another stand so I can point the comics on the other end too, so I can have them, facing a person either way. It's kind of hard though, looking, making sure people aren't. Because I've had comics walk on me, which is always it's a weird compliment with artists when someone steals your comics. It's a very weird thing. You're like, someone stole my book. This is awesome. Someone stole my book. But I mean, the first time someone took one of mine, I was like super excited. But yeah, people are stealing flyers. That's funny. You leave flyers, you come back, they're all gone. Like, you took my flyers. I mean, you could have. Thanks, but yeah, you're right, Eric. I mean, it's like you have to be aware of that your table display can become too chaotic. Mine became chaotic out of necessity, trying to find something to sell. So there ended up being like just a fine mess, a melting pot of the stuff that I had. So we talked about on the other show. We talked about having a little brand building thing. So I got flash drives that are shaped like beer mugs. I've got plushies of our mascot. I've got keychains of our logo, pop-up cups of our logo. It's just with our logo on, it's just so much stuff that we have there. And that stuff takes up a small amount of space, not a large amount of space. The wife will make some stuff. She'll make some stuff sometimes and she'll sell that. Which, if we're having a bad show, always tends to save the day. The little stuff she makes. So when I'm making that pitch, I try to figure out what book brought them to the table. I'm always quick to ask them which book caught your eye, and they'll normally tell me this one, what's it about, and I'll tell them. I'll give them a quick pitch, and I know at that point when they ask me that, I feel I know they say 20 seconds. I feel I've got 10 seconds to sell them on that book.
It's funny. Varian does a reverse pitch. He's actually, like Eric said, he's trying to make them talk about themselves, which can backfire with the wrong person.
Oh, yeah.
Some people be like, what do you like? I don't know. Do you like comics? Mm-hmm. Some of them.
Well, see, that's the thing with the questions that you want to ask. You want to ask questions that require an answer that's not like a yes, no, or a quick disengage. Because even if somebody is, well, I mean, you can't help if somebody's like really butthurt or really having a bad day in some way, they're going to probably not feel like talking and want to disengage. But, again, in situations like that, I've noticed like, hey, what's up? How you doing? Because 9 times out of 10, people are itching to talk about something that's bugging them or something that's on their mind. But they just don't feel like they have the door is open. So you have to open that door for them and then work with the material that they give you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have an observation as a consumer, if you guys don't mind me jumping in here. But when I'm walking through and you see all of these tables and stuff, and the people that you want to make sure that you visit, you want to see their table, maybe because they're friends or you're a fan, whatever the case might be. And then, so you're going to the table with purpose and, you're listening to the pitch because maybe you just want to hang out with them, whatever the case might be. And then the table next to you kind of dovetails off of your pitch. And they're like, oh, well, my book's very similar by my book. And that turns me off. And that makes me just want to put my blinders on and not look at anybody. It really turns me off. And I hate when people do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
That's I think Eric told me once that type of thing makes his ass itch. It's just one of those things that, yeah, you're right.
I may or may not have used those words.
Yeah,
I still have the.
You should have.
I still have the graphic, but we were doing con etiquette and we did cover that as far as pitches for sure. It was definitely one of those like, hey, it's just bad form. Like if you're friends or whatever and you're trying to cross promote and cross pitch, like, hey, so normally these are $20 each, but we'll, if you want both of them, we'll do a deal and we'll do 2 for $30 or something like that. And give you a savings and you get twice as much content. For just $10 more.
I do have a question though, and I want to know how everybody feels about it, even Meredith, because I've had this happen to me. Well, how do you guys feel about somebody? I know for us professionals, it's a no-no, but I've seen it happen. Yeah, your friends looking like this.
Okay, man.
Yeah. I've seen people go to a page where someone, a social media page where someone has their book up and pitch their book or link their book on that person's page.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like going to Marvel and typing in everybody go buy the Begotten on, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or my personal web store now. Go check it out. That type of thing, I've seen it happen. People have tried to actually put their books up for sale on IndieVolt, and thankfully we got security thing there where you can't do that. I have to approve it. And they've done it. Other companies have done it on last call. They come there and, hey, buy my book. No, it's a way that, again, it's still set to where they can't do that without permission. Is that tacky? I think it's tacky. I mean, I'm
very tacky.
Tacky as hell.
There's always going to be a fine line between a pitch and advertising.
Yeah. Well, and also it's just courtesy, respect. I have had someone who used to tag along with me at shows. He'd find out where I was at, then he would insist that the promoter put him next to me. And for a while, he would be like, well, come over here. This is like Ryan's book, look at this. And he would poach people from me until the one day when I had a belly full of it. And you see me right now looking cheerful and, festive and everyone's friend. I called him everything but his name. And I proceeded to turn him inside out. On that, and at one point he came over into my booth at one point to try to sell someone his comic. I grabbed him by the back of the collar and the back of the belt and pushed him over back into his own space. I was and Rob will know this person. I killed him in a story.
I knew right away who you were talking about.
Okay, I thought you would. We will not
imagine. I have a question for you all. I just want, because all you know me really well. Imagine being the neighbor who steps on my toes.
Rob, I would hire you to be at my shows if you would just promise me you'll do that sort of thing, just so I can keep my cheerful demeanor and my reputation.
Oh, it's abusive. It's abusive.
I can't picture Brian getting physical with somebody. I just can't do it.
Well, you see, and that's the thing. I don't. I won my last fight by 500 yards. And to make me actually come in contact with something approaching a human being and hurl them into hopefully the next zip code, it takes a lot, but that can be achieved. So, and just keep in mind, I store all this stuff up. So deep down,
powder keg. He's a powder keg ready to blow.
Yeah, I am. I'm just like one wrong crossword away from being like a psycho killer. And I do kill people in my stories. I know.
He's secretly hoping for the purge to become reality.
Yeah,
I am.
Lola watched Randy get really mad at a convention, and she said he was red. He was fuming. And I'm like, I'm looking at him like, Randy's got 1,000 yard stare sometime. He probably seen some shit. So I mean, comic creators, man, don't mess with us.
Josh, were you going to say something?
We're psycho.
Yeah, I was just going to ask a little bit of a double piggyback on what Brian and Meredith were saying. Now, have you guys ever found when you're trying to pitch your ideas or pitch your stories that your emotional state actually affects how you choose to tell the story? Like if you're in a good mood, you can throw in a random quip. Or you feel like you're reading the script. If you're really angry, you just have to suddenly stop and go, hey, I'm sorry. I just had to throw somebody out of my booth. Does that suddenly change your pitch? Have you had to rework how you do that? Or do you have to go and reset before you can go back into pitching your creation and focus on the happiness and the joy of your work?
I think that's why some of us smuggle booze into the convention.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'll start this. You guys can think about that. You always want to be professional. I do everything I can to be professional to the point where I can pitch a book while I'm dealing with a crazy 5-year-old changing his diaper that's a poop diaper. And yes, I've done it twice and sold the book twice. So that you have to take your emotions away from your pitch. You have to be recording. Am I going to lie and say that it's always perfect? No, I'm sure people have seen that I'm in pain. I can tell you that with a chronic back problem where I'm always in pain, that I sell more when I'm not in a lot of pain. So there's facial features that I'm not matching with the pitches. Change the pitch, but the energy certainly is going to be different, especially if you're at a bad show. By the time you're done pitching the 50th person who says no, and they go, "Oh, well, I'd like a copy." You're like, "What, sir? What did you say?"
Hold on, I'll be right with you.
I know. For me, I commiserate with Rob and with Josh because we all have like these chronic pain issues, and when like with mine, fatigue is a big part of it. And when my body starts to shut down, there's nothing I can do to fight it. I just go downhill fast, and pretty much have to end up sleeping it off. But that's what That's why it's like here's an 800 milligram Motrin or a Vicodin or a wine cooler or something. It's just you need almost anything to just change the toxicology in your system to get you out of that even temporarily, because otherwise it just like it murders me, and I hate it because I can't be the best me that I can be for my customers when I'm fighting my own body, and it sucks, and that crashes my emotions too. And that's one of the few times where I really let my emotions get the better of me, because all my walls come down. It's just like I just need to be thrown in a closet and wake up the next day and be okay.
I am shocked that I got through my first couple of Comic Cons before I had my medical condition that gave me chronic, pain, and I'm shocked that
I left you out on that.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I got through my first Comic Con straight. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to come there sober. I didn't know that. And these puppies have made it that much better. I can last. I mean, listen, when you go to one of these cons that Eric goes to, and I've gone with him to a few of them, and you say, "Oh, the con opens at 10." Okay, what time does it close? 4 a.m. And you're like,
nope.
When does it close? 4 a.m. And you're like, when are we leaving?
That convention, we were only required to be open for 8 hours of that show.
Right, but
there was a pinball tournament arcade show.
But there's money on the floor to be made, and I don't like leaving money on the floor to be made. So I'm sitting there like, it's like 1 o'clock at one point. I'm like, I might as well stay. But then I gotta go to the hotel and sleep and come back. But the thing is, I'll be on hydrocodone and Vicodin for the rest of my life, and for however long I have the illness, I'll be on it for the rest of my life. And the thing is, it does adjust the toxicology, so there are things in, like, it improves my mood drastically. What was once, oh man, I'm in pain. Now I'm starting to giggle and laugh, and I'm hungry.
Is it the pills or is it the bottle of absinthe? Because
I haven't brought the bottle of absinthe to cons yet. When that happens,
pro tip: don't mix alcohol with allergy meds, and don't mix it with actually prescribed opiate medication.
I accidentally
go both ways.
I think I told you guys I accidentally took my hydrocodone once, and then a couple of NyQuils brought to me because I was sniffling, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll take this, and then I realized, oh, I took 2 Vicodin pills. Oh, that was the best sleep I ever gotten. It was so warm and fuzzy. Ooh.
And then he woke up and he started talking about Cat Mom and Super Dad.
That's right, Cat Ass Super Mom on the Kickstarter right now.
Sorry, I had to get at least one of those.
I think we got a little derailed here because we just started all talking about our drug habits. But
yeah.
Isn't it great?
That's
why I wanted to focus on the
strength of
positive.
10 because my heart.
Let's be honest, emotions affect your pitch.
It's a part. Listen, drug use is a part of the Comic-Con experience. I'm just kidding.
Now you know why Deadpool talked about the actual cocaine budget, because these are people creating.
Yeah, creators are very passionate, very emotional people, and
apparently drug
I think we are also human. So when we are on and getting to pitch you on a positive and a high energy level, we're typically in a good mood, but we might have a Pagliacci mask on. You never know. You might be sitting there just going, "Hey, life's great," while your back is just like stabbing you.
Yeah, I have a question for the group.
You're like, it's not even possible, but it is.
I got a question for the group, and it's a one-word response: introvert, extrovert, or omnivert? Start with Rob.
Wait. What's an omnivert?
Little of both.
Okay.
Omnivert.
Rob? Introvert.
Okay.
Heterosexual.
I can't answer it because I believe that there's expansions on it.
Wouldn't that be omnivert then? Like you can
no, I'm considered a high functioning introvert. I became an extrovert because it was a necessity for what I do.
I'll take his answer.
Yeah,
I still need to recharge. That's the thing. The amount of energy that you have to put out at an event when you're plugging your own product or you're plugging your own story or things like that, you need to recharge. But I learned that the hard way from like one of my first jobs out of college was waiting tables. Before that, I had worked offices and print jobs and things like that. And it's the same principle. As soon as you're out there in public, you have to put out so much more positivity and high energy and everything else because people are coming in to feed that happiness. They don't want to walk up to a table and be like, well, my cat just got run over, so I don't know what I'm going to do, or my godfather, I just got a phone call from his sister and she's dead and he died last night in his sleep. That kind of stuff really affects you when you're at a Comic-Con. So
I think a retail
but I would, if broader termed, I guess omnivert. But I'd say introvert.
Yeah,
more.
I was going to say, I think a retail job is great training for pitching things because you have to. It's like as soon as the last customer walks out and the door closes, you can breathe and it's like, okay, my face hurts because I'm smiling so much. And then the next person walks in and you got to turn it back on. So it is exhausting.
Yeah, I have to agree with Meredith on that. You guys don't understand. Be a manager.
Sorry,
in a retail environment, and you get it because you're expected to be perfect. You can't be human. Your life could be falling apart, and you still got to show up, and you still got to smile when someone asks you a dumb fucking question. And you look at them like, "Are you fucking kidding me? You are wasting my fucking life right now."
Well, remember, children, there are no dumb questions.
Upside down, guys.
Yes, there are dumb questions. Whoever told you they're not dumb questions is dumb. Every person.
You there, the retard with the dumb question.
I think that I think I'm an extrovert, but I do think that there are times where I need to recharge. I want to be left alone, and I go into a very dark place. Like, leave me alone, everybody. I'll cuss the kid out. I'll cuss the wife out. Anybody in my way, I'm going to go recharge for 2 days in my bedroom. Close the door. Don't bother me. Just when the doorbell rings, bring me the food. I've ordered my food myself. Don't worry. I don't want to deal with anybody. And I think that's a cost you pay, honestly. I mean, that's why. Isn't that why we all take? And I don't think people don't know this, but we all take that next Monday or Tuesday off after a show because it's so taxing on you mentally. Yeah.
Yep.
I actually don't. I have shows the next day online. I don't get that time off. On Tuesdays, we're back with the.
But you're mentally unwell. So
yes, I know. Well, here's my thing. It's like the Hulk, when they asked the Hulk, do you want me to slap you? He's like, no, my secret is
I'm always angry.
My secret is I always fucking hate everybody. So I'm always in hating mode. So I don't give a shit. Like someone could, and I'm going to ask all you guys, the person you're going to know right away because you've been at a table. The person who comes up to your table, they stop. You lock eyes, and the first thing you think is, "Oh, this motherfucker is gonna waste my time." He is just fucking with me. He's gonna make me pitch everything, and then he's gonna ask motherfucking questions. This is 20 minutes I can never get back, and you start. What do you guys do? Have you ever told someone, "Get the fuck out"?
I've had that customer a few times at different shows, and usually I've learned the lesson once, and now when I go back to that shows and that person comes around, it's like, hey, you want to just talk for 20 minutes? You're going to buy something this time. And that usually disengages them because it's like he's on to me,
Yeah. What you do is I've discovered there's a couple of things you can do. One, you can fake a phone call and they'll walk away. Usually I have people stand there like this though, like would you finish it like, man, he's standing there, or you can excuse yourself to the bathroom. I've had that happen before too.
I do the bathroom one.
Yeah.
That, or I just start talking about Barbara Unleashed in very graphic ways. Like there's literally this scene where her ass cheeks are just completely open and they're about to ram something. What? Where are you going? But then you get the guy who will be like, "Tell me more."
Yeah.
Creepier. Yeah. And you're like, I've had the worst thing is when a woman's drunk and she starts hitting on you. And her fucking husband's right next to you. And you're like, I'm going to get fucking shot.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this. Like, I'm trying not to. And you're caught. Because what people don't understand is we're caught behind our table. We can't just walk away. We can't just give it up and walk away. So I've had the woman be like, do you work out? And I'm like, oh, shit, he's right there. He's right fucking there.
Yeah, but see, Rob, you also have Jax. If you take Jax to a convention, and it's like, do you pluck a hair to make him cry just so that you can, deal with the situation?
I just turn around. I'm like, "Are you okay, Jax?" I'm like, "Are you okay, Jax?" Candy. He's like, "I didn't go." he saw the code word candy, and we'll go find him candy. Sorry, kid, he's got a shit diaper. You don't want to stick around for this.
Oh, I had one woman when I first started selling my books at a show. It was a local show, and she came up to me and started talking about my teeth. And I'm like, oh, God. Yeah, because I've got a couple teeth missing. What the hell? It makes me look like a vampire. She's like, you look like a werewolf. And she was giving off those vibes. And I kept looking at her boyfriend. It's like, would you please save me? And he's just like, oh, God, not again. Not again. And you're trapped there. All you have to do is just let him vent. And then, like, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. Hey, have a nice day. Gee, is that the time? Gotta go. So you just have to find some way to get the hell out of there.
For another thing that I have that happened about people that won't go away is one of the fallbacks or drawbacks of having booth girls, guys at your table who won't leave them alone. And that's all I'll say.
I think pitching in itself can definitely get interesting when you have some more unique people come up to your table. But I do want to take a second and be like the positives when you have those fans that come back or those people that have already bought from you the day before, but they just want to hang out for a little bit and kind of cultivate the metaphorical relationship. Because you think about the concept of a pitch, it's like we're throwing the ball to connect to the bat, and we connected, but now we got to make sure that that person isn't suddenly out after they've already made that contact. It seems like an extreme example of that, but it's like, hey, I've had times where I've had people that come back every couple of years, or every year or every show they see me at, they come and they spend like an hour or 2 hours, and I may low key my pitch, but they may hear it 3 or 4 times in 3 different ways, and then they'll try and do their own pitch.
Yeah.
And that can sometimes work for you.
And then you end up with those few people who end up being part of your staff.
Now, let me ask you guys this, if it's okay. When you're pitching, do you sometimes go with the more physical approach? Do you go with the full salesman approach of here, because they don't want to touch anything because it's on your table. They assume it's like a museum or something. Do you pull the here, check it out? Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Let me show you. You hand them the poster, you hand them the art book, you hand them the comic book. You're like, here, take a look. You have your demo copies.
No, I stand in front of my table, Josh. I grab him by the arm and I put it in their hand, and I'm like, wouldn't you like to leave this one day? So you're going to read the book, you're going to buy it, and you're going to go home.
Hey, if it works for you, it works for you.
Way to pitch? Isn't no. I don't try to.
I know that cosplay isn't consent, but I wasn't aware that comics doesn't mean consent. Damn, dude.
No, I think that putting it in the hands is very important. Kidding around aside, there's something about when they're touching it, they are almost 60 to 80% more likely. I don't remember what the number is, but the minute they start touching it, so you almost have to try to get them to touch it because it's a connection thing. It's a psychological thing. When someone's touching it, they're suddenly feeling it, they're flipping through it. So you do want to encourage someone touching it. Someone won't buy something if they're hesitant to grab it. So that's also a great indicator of this person's not willing. And as we call it at the con, the Velcro wallet. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. I can't get my wallet out because of all the Velcro, but if I could, I'd buy it. Right.
I think we can all agree that there's the sales part of the pitch, but there's also the creative part of the pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait till this video is uploaded. I'm going back. I'm clipping that whole section of Rob talking about grabbing it and touching it, and I'm using it forever.
I'll do it anytime you want.
Yeah, this could be evidence one day.
In the post Voldemort area, I'm wondering how many of those mannerisms are going to change. Are people going to want us to hand them something?
Yeah.
I just want to be like the little cone bot in Rise of Skywalker right now. No, thank you. Hey, it's socially aware right now. It's socially distant. It's okay.
When somebody's showing their comic book and they're kind of flipping through the pages, and it's almost like instead of handing it to me, it almost feels like the dangling carrot. It's like, let's make contact here so I can kind of flip through it on my own and kind of read and see if it's a story that I'm even interested in, even beyond the pitch. So like when somebody's kind of, because I'm 5'2", and most of them are hovering over me and they're holding it and it's just like right out of reach.
I think that's got a lot of, you definitely got a lot of points with that, Meredith. It's one of those weird things where There are going to be some people that are going to be careful with the copy, and then there's going to be other people that are just going to pull and tear, and that might be your last copy of the book. So I think it's possible that those people with the carrot tendency are doing that. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No. I apologize, Josh. I got excited because what I tried to do is leave one copy for people to manhandle.
Yeah, the fondle copy.
Yeah, exactly. And you talk about getting it into the customer's hands.
Come on, Varian. You're talking about my words, and you're not hearing this right now. Handling it, getting in people's hands.
Rob's gonna need a cigarette now. But no, that's the one time when that the work you keep hearing. Well, I want my work to speak for itself, but you've got to make that pitch to get them intrigued, and then you put the product in their hands so that they can flip through it, find what appeals to them, rather than like what Meredith has encountered, where hey, look at this, isn't this groovy? Don't you want to buy this book? It's like it doesn't work. I've tried it on my shows. No, it doesn't work. But that's the point when you can get them to want to take the product in their hand. Don't get excited, Rob. That finally, that's when the work will speak for itself, and the customer can then find the thing that makes them say yay or nay.
So let me ask you guys a question with that. I've always said this, and this is what I actually talk about for real. It is like dating. I don't know if I like the metaphor about a baseball and the connecting. I get what Josh meant, but it also means you're knocking the fan away from you if you think about it, if you make that contact. So I always equate it to dating because, like you said, you want them to come back to you, right? But it's not like serious dating. You want them casual. You want an open relationship so you can date other people. What do you?
The goal of baseball is to get that ball back to get that other person out.
So you don't want a home run. You just want it coming back. I got it.
Yeah.
So what about you guys? How do you mentally approach it? Because for me, it is dating. I read dating books to be better at talking to people and to actually get an idea how to pitch them. What have you done specifically to get your pitches better? Josh, we'll start with you. Are you playing baseball to do it, or do you have another mental thing that you do? Is there like something you think of right when you're about to do it? Because I will think about dating as I'm like, okay, if this was in a relationship, how would you approach it?
Well, in contrast, I don't really read dating books or anything like that. There's a little bit of psychology involved. There's a little bit of just plain experience and sales. I've worked everything from food industry to offices to printing and retail and the whole 9 yards, and how you interact with people changes in those environments, and it also changes on their own emotional spectrums. But I took a lot of tips out of this one particular we lost Varian. Oh no! Out of this one particular book a couple of years ago, and I've passed that off to a couple of other people. But it was a book that was a sales book written right after the 1930s, right after the Depression kicked in, and these guys were the top sales company in the United States. And there's some fairly sensitive language that needs to be rephrased if it ever came back to publication now, but it's one of those books at the same time where it covers a lot of those things, like, hey, making that physical connection, or figuring out, hey, this person doesn't have a lot of time. We've mentioned a couple of times on other podcasts the phrase of the sell the sizzle and not the steak. Like Meredith, it's great to hand you the comic book, but if I'm sitting here going, it's 110 pages on an archival paper and it's perfect bound and it's blah, 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 blah. Sometimes you don't care about that. Sometimes you actually just want to take a look and see how it works and leave it there. And they'll do that. And that's, it covers different levels of salesmanship. So for me, that's really affected how I choose to make the pitch. Sometimes I'll leave it there on the table with a note and be like, ooh, you can pick me up, make it very cartoony but interactive. So if they don't feel like interacting with me. And then sometimes even with that sign, I'll be like, hey, by the way, I've already gone through my pitch, but feel free to take a look at this. Sometimes I'll pull out my personal sketchbook as an additional, thing and be like, hey, you guys have been around long enough. Let me show you what I've been working on the last couple of weeks. It comes down to how you choose to make those connections.
Yeah, those are great points, Josh. I tend to follow the advice of a man named Zig Ziglar, who was a great salesperson long ago and a fantastic motivational speaker. And he always said, assume the sale. assume that you will successfully make the connection that allows the customer to buy. And then it's your job to figure out what they need, what they are looking for. Are they looking for casual entertainment? Are they, I had a show earlier this year where I'm trying to tell this person about the book, and they're like, well, these comics and everything sound great, but I'm looking for something that explores the human condition. And I'm like, I'm a pulp guy. I'm a pulp flavored guy. We don't, you want the human condition by Upton Sinclair. It's like,
Nice.
you'll go blind looking for it at my table. And sometimes you have to turn people away during the sale. And I sometimes get people that will come back and try something simply because I'm honest with them. They'll say, well, do you have like erotica? Do you have, my favorite dino porn or anything? Well, gosh, we didn't bring any today, but
that's interesting. He's got dinosaurs, right?
Yeah, it's like an ongoing theme on my shows, dinosaur pornography.
We lost Josh.
We lost Josh. Nice, yeah, but there's Rob catering to me. No, but yeah, it's like sometimes people do appreciate when you don't sell to them, and you kind of keep that door open because they could then say, hey, listen, I don't read that sort of thing, but let me get my friend who does. So, there's just a lot of things that a lot of these great salespeople can teach all of us. And there's nothing that says, like it's been said, you don't have to like come across as a phony. You don't have to wear a fez and a bow tie or any of that stuff. You just be yourself and just, take these little things into account. But I think finding the thing that the customer is looking for is very, very important.
I want to interject here, Rob. There's some comments over here in the corner, one of which is from Trico. He says, I think he says, Fondo Cobb, he's going to be named my new band. But he also says, I think Varian is more of a catcher than a pitcher. Boom. And he's completely right. If the cons don't start back up and start catching all time, yeah.
I told you what my new business model is on your show today. Mm-hmm. I'm going to raise money.
Yeah.
We found out live on air that MegaCon and SuperCon were done. And I'm like, I'm just going to go to the streets. My jaw still works. And
then Sarah, she said, people do tiers on Kickstarter, so I'm guessing it's that way on someone's table as well. Also, how would you sell PDFs from a physical table if they don't have access to download at that time? That's a really good question. I'm going to let you guys answer, though, because I got to go because I just got delivered dinner. So I want to thank everybody for letting me come on the show, though, and pick your brains and put in my 2 cents. Well, yeah, you don't sell PDFs. Don't do it unless you can get them like on a flash drive. But then again, it can't be printable.
Actually, you take their money, Varian. You get their email address and you deliver it to them.
Yeah, you could just go on your phone, couldn't you?
While you're behind the table.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, you, no matter what it is, whatever type, you need to always be closing ABC. Mm-hmm. Get the money from them, but the onus on you that you're shipping this out. If you're out of an art print or if you're out of a book, say, let me get your name and number. Okay, let's go ahead and pay for it, and I will ship this out when I get home.
I'm far more simple. If they want a PDF copy of something, I would just make sure it's a locked file. If it's for Kindle or whatever have you, Kindle, PDF, whatever reader thing you're using, and just have saved hyperlinks, and then offer to send it via email or send it via, cell phone, send it via text message. Depending on the person, some people don't like giving out their email and some people don't like giving out their phone. Yeah. It's like the PayPal Venmo story all over again.
If a person doesn't want to give me their email for the PDF, I simply direct them to the new fancy Last Call Comics app. It's right there.
There you go.
They click on that sucker. Yep. They can click on that sucker, bring it up, and they can go in there and get those PDFs. And the cool thing about those PDFs is they're locked to their account, so they can't share them with their friends.
There you go.
Anyway, thanks for letting me come in, guys. I appreciate it. Varian Grant, I am out. I'll see you guys all later tonight.
Enjoy your McDonald's.
Yeah. Actually, it's meatloaf, but yeah. All right.
This show is brought to you by McDonald's. See, I can't give me that. You can't.
Those dinosaurs, they got a little too dreaded up in there.
That's right.
What can you do? Yeah.
Dragon
That's why I
Maya
was
beat me
laughing
the
earlier. I
mud.
was like, I feel like someone's brain got mixed up on those things.
Yeah,
But
now
Eric's
you
face
now
is
you have
priceless.
a glimpse into my audience, Josh.
Oh, trust me, I've seen tarantula ladies and all sorts of terrible things. I used to draw for furries. I'm all too well aware.
Oh my gosh.
Rob, can I be moved?
Look at the Hercules bear.
No, you stay right where you are, Brian, because you encourage the dino porn. There'll be a very serious moment on his show where he'll be like, I really miss that person. I can't stand that they're not with us anymore. They died of cancer. Oh, look, dino porn! Right after, without missing a beat, just happy again. I'm like, Brian, come on, man.
They know what I like.
Dino porn can't help it. He's like a little kid. He's like dino porn. He can't help it. Look how giddy he is.
And I will also caution our audience: do not Google that term. You will not be a happier person when you're done. I did that one night, and I can eat.
Yeah, you might have the local
He's like,
finest
just go
knocking on
and
your
search
door
for
too.
Yeah, it's like somebody in the NSA threw up the minute I did that. It's just not a kind thing to do to anyone. So,
wait, there's a dinotube.com. Now I'm so interested.
Oh no! Don't do it! Don't do it!
Jurassic camping.
So pitches.
Yes,
Back
yeah.
to that.
So how would you pitch?
you know-
How would you pitch dino porn?
First, you take your hand
You're
and you
looking for
put
something
it
a
way
little bit
back, and
epic
you
and
just hurl it as
prehistoric,
fast as you can.
without all of the confines of the modern era. You're looking for something that brings and tips the scales in more ways than one. You ever wanted to see a carnivore? It's like an omnivore and a carnivore at the same time.
Yeah.
And a little cunnilingus. All the other fun stuff.
Yeah, they may be
I don't know. That's
herbivores,
just off
but you
top of the
see how
head. You're like,
useful those
focus
little
on
short arms can
keywords that
be.
apply.
I do not advocate nor endorse any of the things being said previously.
Tell me this
dinosaur.
pillow. Like things that are soft and white.
The question is, how does a dinosaur consent? Look, no one.
You've reached our limit. Just say.
Brian broke the internet first and
Is
foremost.
there a
Just help
real
make sure that
question
the
or a
client's
topic
fault.
that we can be discussing?
All right, enough dino porn. Let's get serious. We are running out of time. One of the things that I do want to talk about that we didn't get to was the length of a pitch. And it's funny that would be, we kind of touched on it, but we didn't fully get there. Do you guys have different length pitches? The very quick one and the little more informative one. Mm-hmm. And how do you know when to use which? We'll go around the room. I'll start it off real quick. I start with all the simple pitches. I start, of course, with the fetish monsters and more. I'm a comic book creator, and I create fetish monsters and more. And again, looking for that response, that human response, eyes, smile, some sort of tick that kind of guides me where to I go next. And then I use shorter pitches until they've bought into it, till they start asking me questions. And that's when the bigger pitches come out. Brian?
Very similar. I always start with asking if they want Spanx and being tied up and stuff. No, seriously, what I do is I use my quick elevator pitch, 2 sentences, 2 breaths, and then gauge. Like we keep saying on a number of these shows, read your audience, read their reaction, and if they give you like some sort of indication they're still interested, then I have like another couple sentences to zero in on something else that I think they will find appealing about the project. But if they don't respond to the first one, I just move on to the second one. And I try to give them all of my stuff on my table within 30 seconds. And then just leave it to them to ask me questions or just offer, is there anything, what do you like to read? Is there anything that I've mentioned that, that speaks to you, that sort of thing, to try to continue the conversation if all possible. But other than that, it's the first, one attack, a secondary attack, and then chances are I'm moving on because I figure if I haven't sold it by then I'm probably not going to make that sale. Josh?
Oh, no, I totally agree with that. I kind of covered everything in the beginning. Ironically, I was saying, yeah, you figure out your pitch based on who they are or how they're acting. If they're acting a little bit more excited versus a little bit more awkward. If they're a longtime fan, sometimes you're going to be bringing more emotional connection and social connection with them. Like, hey, how are you? How's your year been? How's this going on? Sometimes it's changing your inflection, but yeah, I don't try to keep my too structured. Let's leave it at that. I don't try to keep my pitches too structured because I'm always wanting to play with that. I may focus on keywords, but at the same time, I'm not going to read that. Because I'll get distracted by something. It'll be like somebody walking by who's dressed up as a balloon with a bunch of straps around it for some reason, and they chose that they wanted to walk around that so that they could have some distance in the crowd, or something like that. And I'll use that as the conversation topic to bring into me selling pitches.
Yeah, for me, it's like my shortest pitch is basically I draw a little bit of everything from anime to wrestling, and then expand upon it from there. Another thing that I like to do is if somebody's in costume, I give them a compliment, take a picture, and then that is a natural lead into what I'm about and what they're about. And again, it's creating relationships, small, short-term friendships, whatever you need to do, just create that connection, get them talking about themselves, and you'll usually get a good turnaround.
And for the noob, what are your plans?
Well, I do have a retail background, and for me, it is in my head, I want to hope that the product sells itself, but then I'm also there for the upsell. Like, what else can I add to that bundle and give them the deal? So for me, with this background, especially in food, food service is very difficult. If you put something out there that nobody likes, they don't really have an excuse to come back or a reason. So you want to try and get it right the first time, and building that relationship with them, whether it's that 1 minute, like love at first sight type of thing, or, what can I love about them that can help me connect to them and have this really cohesive conversation so that we can start talking. And not that we're going to become great friends, but it's like that 5-minute speed date. It's like, well, this, I saw you looking at this, and by the way, there's this that complements that, and get it together. I can get you a deal. A little eye contact, a little smile. So again, speaking to what these guys were already saying, is it's that relationship building in a quick amount of time.
All right, guys, speaking of quick amount of time, we're almost out of time. We don't go over 2 hours. So we're going to go around the room. I'm going to end the show with my pitch for Cat Dad and Supermom, because it's still on Kickstarter, so I'm going to let Brian go first.
All right, quick pitch. I am Brian K. Morris. I write comic books and I write novels. My company is called Rising Tide Publications. You can find me on risingtide.pub, also Rising Tide Publications page on Facebook. And every day of the week now, we're doing a show at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. Central Time called Nevermind the Furthermore. We can be found on Facebook, on the aforementioned Rising Tide page, on the OnCon page too, and now, thank you, Meredith, on YouTube. So please like and subscribe to Nevermind the Furthermore. And now, Josh.
Well, guys, you can find me through social media, primarily on Facebook and Instagram at Art of Josh Lyman, and soon to be artofjoshlyman.com, as soon as I can get the time to finish that out. Every other day or so, I tend to do some sort of live stream where it's me drawing, be it commissions or just something I really want to do. And eventually, hey, if you stay tuned in and follow along, you'll see some of the indie works I'll knock out and be able to pitch those to you later on.
My name is Eric Hodson. I am at Dreaded Dinosaur Man on all the social medias. If you go to my website, erikhodson.com, you'll see this wonderful picture of me with a little bio. You'll be able to click and see my Instagram posts. It's a fun little website that I built. You can buy some prints. You can see a gallery of my wrestling, my anime, some of my newer raw sketch series that I'm really happy with. And you can also click on this little link up here to buy prints. You'll be taken to my online store, and I hope to see you there. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm Meredith Lochran. I am the comic noob because I know nothing about comic books and this is my journey. I am also part of geekinsider.com. See, getting notes from Brian, where we do a lot of different articles about tech, geek stuff, entertainment, and all that. So I am a contributor there. We've launched a lot of different podcasts and things. You can follow us at podcast.geekinsider.com for our things from Geek Out Virtual Con that we did. A lot of these guys were participating in it. We have Lady Geek, Comic Noob. We are going to be here 4:00 tomorrow with Rob to launch that podcast, and that's really it. I am a writer, and I am working on my pitch. It's terrible. I know it. Back to you, Rob.
I'd like to thank everyone for being with us. This has been a great show, great opportunity to talk about the power of pitching. Notice how much it's important to all of us to understand the pitch, how much we've actually researched and we actually think this deeply, because it matters. It truly matters. You're going to live or die by the pitch. And speaking of which, I'd have to say that I failed twice doing the Kickstarter for Cat Dad and Supermom. And I think it all came down to how I packaged and pitched it. And I think when I actually got real honest and I talked about why it mattered, and well, basically here, watch it for yourself and you'll see why this has seen more success now, because I pitched it from the heart.
An all-ages tale that teaches morals with farts and shows the power of imagination that will entertain everyone in your family, including the parents reading the book. Thank you for hitting play and allowing us to introduce you to Cat Dad and Supermom, the award-winning Farts with Morals storytelling awesome adventure that people seem to love. And we could keep going that way. We could use words that could try to get you to be excited and convinced to buy it, but I'd rather just be honest with you. I'd rather be humble with you and tell you why I created the story. You see that little boy over my shoulder, right over there, and the other side, the Supermom, and the big elephant that farts? All of that is based on my boy. He's a special needs 5-year-old who I love with all my heart. And he has made me a better man and has taught me what unconditional love is. So if this story is about him, the standard had to be higher. That's why I got one of the best artists in the world in Raheel Mohsin. I got Chuck Pinault, who has done such great work as an editor and as a writer himself, to be part of this. Both of them became co-creators because of how much passion went into this. It was about passion for creating a top-notch story that was meant to entertain your entire family, and I think we did that. The rest, they're all keywords. They're all ways to convince you to do it. Truthfully, this is a story that matters to me, and it had to be one of the best stories that I wanted to share with you. It advocates for people who get bullied, and it advocates for the right things to do when you see someone get bullied. It advocates for being a better human being, but it also represents my son. And because of that standard, because of the fact that my son is in this book, it had to be one of the best things I could create, probably in my entire career. Anytime my son is attached to something, it is that high of a standard for me. So if you're looking for a reason to back this Kickstarter, it's because, well, because I love my son, and I wouldn't put anything out with his name on it that wasn't amazing. Thank you for watching, sharing, and backing Cat Dad and Supermom, and Ella Fart never forgets.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Be kind and share. Thank